Hello, my ladies. So I have been feeling a big push, that's why you're getting gym clothes, to give you guys some insight and help you release some guilt. If you've been having issues in friendships, relationships, marriages, work, all of the above, it's something that I've been seeing a pattern in, something I've been going through and purging. Also, it's the same thing I had to go through with my husband, my late husband. So what you probably have been dealing with, and we put a lot of blame on ourselves, especially if you're an empath. If you're an empath, you have been feeling, well, let me backtrack. So you probably have been around narcissists, whether in work or whatever aspect of your life, and they have a tendency to gaslight, where, we're overreacting, we're too much, very sensitive, we have the issues, we're crazy, all the above. Why can't we just let things go? Blah, 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 blah. So guess what happens? We, as empaths, we go and dig in to figure out what's triggering that, because we take their word as like gold and respect them. So we go and do inner healing. Do you know what that does though? When they gaslight on us, even if they don't speak the words, we can read the energy, so we kind of know what they're thinking even, and we take that on. So we go do our work and we heal certain parts of ourselves. But when we do that and they don't do that, you start going like this. Your energy level, your frequency, your vibe, your whatever you want to call it, starts growing and shifting. When I did that with my husband and started chasing my dreams, and it hit a point where he started gaslighting and he wasn't good enough and all the things, I went and started doing my inner work. But then what happened, it got even worse, because then the separation and the gap got bigger because I was doing my work. When that happens, then their gaslighting got even worse. Then it was blaming. It was all my fault. It was, all the causes. So then I started throwing out, which you probably do. You throw out all the things to try and heal stuff, whether it's, couples therapy, all the things. You try and listen, whatever, and it never gets better. And it's this constant, because you're up here, it's like this constant cord pulling you back down, because they want to feel you at that same vibration. They feel like they are losing you, which they are, because it's kind of like cliques in high school or junior high. You dated usually within your own clique, and if you started dating, you started growing and you didn't fit, or feel comfortable in that clique anymore, and you started dating, say if you were skaters and then you started dating jocks, then all of a sudden you feel the people that don't love you so much because you're dating a jock. It's that same frequency level. You think you're too good for them, blah, 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 blah. That's all of their own inner pain, their own inner conversation that they are mirroring onto you. So you growing and creating the gap to be bigger, it's like we took their recommendations of us being crazy, overreacting, oversensitive, blah, blah, blah. Go do our work to learn how to love ourselves more, which then is teaching somebody how to treat us. So then they start realizing they're losing you because you're starting to show how you deserve to be treated. And if they don't man up and do the work inside themselves, it doesn't get any better. I don't care how much you try. I don't care how much therapy you go to. If they aren't willing to do the inner work and heal their shadow, which is all of the things that they don't share emotionally, they don't talk about. It's their secrets. It is their shame pieces. It is all of the things that we just had to deal with to process to have that gap get bigger. And what I started watching over COVID and all of that, the world shifted. And you've probably been doing this for the last 2 to 4 years. If COVID was your catalyst, then the last year. But what has happened in the shifting is narcissists, whether a woman or man, it's like now you can see that. You can see it. And you can't deny it. Because if you've done your work, now you have self-love of yourself that you won't allow certain things, which means you get louder, which means you actually start fighting back, which means you actually start laying down the rules and the laws of like how to respect you. And if they aren't willing to do that, they don't get to be in your space. So they go into panic mode. They go into frantic. They go into, it's like fight or flight. It's a cat in a corner. They are going to start lashing out in certain ways. Even if they aren't speaking it, you can feel the panic. You can feel it. For me, when that started happening with my husband, I started working a lot more to avoid home. I started wanting to be out or be gone or be with friends or whatever, as long as it wasn't with the person who made me feel like I was never doing anything right, as long as it wasn't with the person that was guilting me for anything I did for myself, anything, and then would point out all my flaws on a daily basis, because guess what? That's their own internal dialogue of all their flaws that is playing over and over and over again. Because, I mean, think of our own self-talk. We're our worst critic. So if you've done your work now and you're growing and you're trying to grow, all we ever wanted to do was take them with us. That's why we were overreacting, overly sensitive. We wanted them to grow with us. But once it's like this, they have to grow because we're not stopping. So unless you're willing to like cut your wings because you deserve to be able to fly and not be tethered and held, they have to learn how to fly. They have to learn how to love themselves. They have to learn how to heal their internal dialogue that says that they're not good enough anymore. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can say that's going to heal that. Nothing. And what happens is the tension and the frustration and the anger and the resentment, all of it gets worse and worse and worse. It doesn't get better. It doesn't. I wish I could say it does. But it keeps getting bigger, because if they're blaming, because they haven't done any work, because otherwise you would know that there is no blame. We stay in situations that hurt us. That's us. There's no blame. Somebody doesn't purposely hurt you. We stay because of our own self-worth at the time. But when we know better, we do better. So there is no blame. We don't get to blame somebody else. So when they're in blame mode, it's all your fault. And if they are blaming, that means they are not taking a look at what they're doing to cause the problem, what emotional wounds they have that are causing the problem and pushing you further away. Because we're not going to play the same games that we would have a year ago. We're not going to play the same games that they are used to 6 months ago, a month ago. Because if we're constantly trying to better ourselves because we are the biggest critic and the person that we are like trying to show up for, I hate to say it, but it's not on us. It's not, you can't save anybody. And as an empath, we try to. That's why when we were here and it was just like a little bit, it's like we were dragging an anchor because we wanted them by us so bad. Even when they were gaslighting on us, even when it wasn't great in the first place. That's why it became a point where we started to like go like this. But then all of a sudden, they're not your bestie anymore, or you don't love your work anymore, or you don't want to hang out with that friend because they don't make you feel good, or you work more so that you don't go home. So I guess I am sharing this, one, because it was something I already went through and I'm watching it come back again on a worldwide scale, because like I said, the energy in the world shifted, where women or empath individuals are now seeing where they were allowing themselves to be taken advantage, pushed down, and not loving themselves enough to stand up and walk out, stand up and demand better. And we forgive ourselves for that, but we do better the next day. And that's what I'm starting to see on a massive, massive scale. And it's something where the lies they would have told us before we would have accepted, now we won't. If it's in your gut, it does not work for you, then it's something that needs to be addressed. Because before, we would accept and bury things that bothered us. Problem is, when they start gaslighting and we have self-confidence and our self-worth is back, the old tricks they used to do aren't going to work for them. So narcissists worldwide are going to start flailing because they've never done anything other than suck out other people's energy and blame it on them. So they have to learn how to be okay with themselves, actually feel emotions, all the things that, you wanted like non-emotional guys to actually like express and do. If they don't start doing those things, they are going to be very alone, and they are going to start pulling at you. They're going to start blaming. It's going to get vindictive. It can get ugly. Just like after 17 years of marriage, I never thought a divorce with him would be ugly. But when people are in the corner, like the cat in the corner, they in fight or flight mode, if you have to get a divorce from one, if you have to deal with ones at work, any of that stuff, be prepared. Protect yourself and don't assume, like we do. We have that hope thing, that love thing, and hope they're always going to like be better, grow, and wouldn't ever do mean and evil things and like blah, blah. No. When a narcissist is losing control, talk about a freak out. Talk about vindictive. Talk about reactive. That's like a volcano. So protect yourself. Be prepared. And if you do have to get a divorce, which I hope you don't have to, but I have a feeling a lot of women on a worldwide scale, go get copies of all of your assets and taxes and all of that shit now. Go get copies of everything that you need now. Because what I learned is it's not going to be easy. They're going to call you a liar in courtroom. It doesn't matter. They will hide stuff. They will hide money. They will hide all of it to try and hurt you and win in some way, shape, or form and get back control. So protect yourself, which means thinking ahead, knowing what you will need ahead, talking to an attorney ahead of time to find out all the things you need before you ever speak words of that to them. That is one thing that I did learn the hard way, because I did have hope, because I did have faith in the person that I had known my whole life, but I didn't realize like how lost he was at that point, how much in fight or flight mode he was, how desperate he was and his family was. Those are the things we don't know that person. I don't care if you've been married for 40 years. You don't know that person because before you decide, they always had you. They always had control of the situation. When they start losing control, start watching true colors come out. And I hate to say, but my grandma was always right, and I never wanted to believe it, with believe who they are the first time. As empaths, sometimes it takes us 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 times before we finally see what we didn't want to see before. And I don't care if it's a friendship, work, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, doesn't matter. So be prepared, be smart, and protect yourself. And above all else, any decision you make sure it lights you up. Make sure it makes you happy. Don't do anything out of obligation. Don't stay anywhere out of obligation or fear or all of that. There's always a way to get out of it. Always. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to not have your wings clipped. You deserve to keep loving yourself and growing, and to not be with somebody who isn't willing to do the same. But I feel the guilt of my fellow women, I guess, flying. That energy is flying around like crazy right now. Marriages on the rocks, relationships on the rocks, all of that. And it's not fun to be at home, and we're nurturers. We're loving. So we see their pain, we feel, and we keep silent in certain areas, but that's not good for our soul. And it's not going to work in the world that is coming forward and what's happening. It's like a divine intervention, I guess. It's like God's coming in and like taking the facade and the veil between what we would like hope and potential we would see in people, and like making us actually see what's in front of us. And sometimes it's not pretty. It wasn't pretty for me with my husband. I never in a million years thought that. Never in a million years thought I was going to have to get a divorce. He was having mental, like nothing, none ever. But when people don't want to change and they don't want to grow, you can't convince them. And don't take it personal either. When I know for me, I took it personal for so long of like, how could he, and I know my daughter did, how could he not choose us? How could he not want to get better for us? Because his own self-worth and love, self-love, isn't there. He wasn't taught how to put himself first. He wasn't taught that emotions are okay. Secrets in life and holding them for other people, or secrets in shame in ourselves, is not going to be okay going forward. It eats us alive. If you aren't willing to share your truth and speak up, it's like you don't get sleep, you don't get peace. And above all else, we deserve peace. So you get gym clothes and me sharing, I guess, what I am feeling coming on a massive scale. And I feel like it's going to get a lot uglier before it gets better. So if you're in any of these situations and you feel the pressure coming, I was even thinking, because I've been seeing, I've had a couple people ask about doing like Zoom group meeting chats and that, for where I can, pull cards, we can talk, all of the things, and you're able to kind of find a tribe who's going through the same stuff too, though. So I might be doing some of those if any of you are interested or in the middle of those situations, because I have a feeling that a lot of my ladies need some of that, some guidance, a plan, people they know that are going through the same thing, someone they can reach out to, and if that's the case, because literally you have to create a strategic plan. There are so many things I wish I would have done differently and not hoped and prayed the person that I married would show up then, because he didn't. His family didn't, and he didn't. So we can only trust the actions that we see in front of us, not the hope and praying and potential that we hope shows up, because that's not the evidence that we have. So we need to look at the actual evidence. But don't take the guilt on while you're trying to save your marriage because he's gaslighting you and guilting you and you're the one pushing him away and all the things. No, you're growing and he feels the gap. He feels like he's losing you, which just like my husband, he was, because I knew I was not going to settle for any of the crap. And if he wasn't going to get help, he was going to lose me. And he did. Just don't wait as long as I did. I waited until my life was on the line. My health had deteriorated to shit. And my stress, like, it was insane. Don't wait until you're almost dying to choose you. Choose you. And the difference that I've also seen is as soon as you claim boundaries at the beginning, before it's too bad, and willing to say, no, I deserve better, that gives him a chance to show up for himself and for you. When we wait too long, like I did, I was almost dying. He was almost dying. And then he was at a place at rock bottom when I finally cut it off that he didn't want to live anymore. And he didn't know how to. He didn't have any hope. If I would have drew the line in the sand a lot earlier, he would have had a chance. We don't enable people to be small, because when we do that, we enable us to stay small and tethered to it. So freaking fly, my bitches. And they've got to figure out how to catch you. Because just like the full moon, the eclipse, it's a flower moon. Because we're supposed to be blooming. And there's a poem that says, when the flower blooms, the bee comes. They have to figure out how to become bees and fly. If not, other bees will find you and then they'll freak out for that too, but that's not on you. You are just growing and loving you. That's all we get to do. We don't get to choose the consequences for anyone else's actions, just our own. So, love you, do you, and know that they are projecting any of their own insecurities on you. Don't take them. You can say back to them, I won't even go into that. That's a whole nother story. So I hope you ladies can release some of that guilt and pain, because we try and save marriages, we try and save relationships, we try and see the potential, the hope, all of it. But sometimes they're just meant to be in our life for time. And we take the lessons and everything and the love that we did have, and we grow from it. It's not ever a bad experience until we wait too long to let it become really bad. And that's when divorces and all of that get ugly. So don't do that. But I love you ladies. Talk to you soon.